So let's look back and maybe do a little bit of awards. Is that all right with you?
Of course.
Okay, so midseason awards, and it's funny because, like I said, we have another bye week. So I mean, it's like, could you imagine the luxury? We have so much time to like.
Mid-season, we're 8 games out of 12.
I know, but I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's kind of weird to me to think that it's almost like an act one, act two, act three, and then the postseason, which is like, man, that's like a full on opera. It's like a 4-hour opera. I got to bring an opera, you know that. Okay, so let's talk. Who's your offensive MVP?
It's got to be Hartman. It's
Yeah,
got to be
it has
Sam
to be.
Hartman, and it depends. No matter what your definition of MVP is, best player, Sam Hartman.
Mhm.
Most valuable player, Steve Angeli's not ready for this. Steve Angeli would not have won the Duke game. Steve Angeli might not have converted all 4 short fields, all 3 short fields against USC into touchdowns, which was vital. It's got to be Sam Hartman. I don't know if you've got any other mind and any other names in mind, but
Nope. I'm not even going to name another person. I think you're right. I think it has to be. And one thing I really admire about Sam's play is, he's hyper efficient, which back to your point of like, okay, well, drive by drive, can you recover? And the answer is for Sam, for the most part, always yes, which, very valuable considering that he holds the ball every play. Defensive MVP.
I'm curious what name you have in mind, actually, because I know what name I want to say, and I'm wondering if you're going to be there with me.
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking at the whole of the season. I thought two games come to mind where I'm like, okay, obviously Xavier Watts recently. I mean, that kind of really pushed it. But then I think Ben Morrison for me, because I think being a cornerback, it's like the most impossible job. And what he did in Ohio State, I thought was, I mean, I thought it was an incredible performance. And I think throughout the season, I think he's kind of put together consistent, like really solid performances that buoyed historically what I have seen as one of the weakest points of Notre Dame's defenses, historically. So for me, he's my defensive MVP. But I also, I'm a receiver. I'm biased towards those guys. So I spend a lot of time with those
Benjamin
guys.
Morrison is absolutely outstanding. I am going to go elsewhere though. Howard Cross the third, defensive tackle,
Mhm.
has been playing out of his mind, and he played really well to start last year, and then suffered a high ankle sprain that he never fully was able to get healthy, and you could see it in his stats. Right now, he's number 2 on the team with 45 tackles. Defensive tackles are not supposed to get 45 tackles. That includes 5.5 for loss. If you think back to that Ohio State game, he held the point of attack on
Mhm.
every play. And the one that's going to get replayed forever, to Notre Dame fans' chagrin, is that touchdown when only 10 men were on the field. Go watch that replay and focus on Howard Cross, number 56 in the middle of the line, because there wasn't anybody else
Yeah.
on his right side. Ohio
No,
State was able to put 2.5 offensive linemen on him, and he
didn't move.
still held enough of the point of attack that
Didn't move.
touchdown had to be reviewed. He's playing that well. He's not a huge guy, but he's extremely strong. His hands literally pack a punch. He's playing that well. Benjamin Morrison's playing great, but I think the drop off in this defense would be that much bigger without Howard Cross. He's playing. I don't know if he's going to get the notice nationally, but he's playing at an All American caliber.
Wow. No, it's a good pick. Wow. Newcomer of the midseason. It's funny, the midseason, but yeah, newcomer.
I'm going with running back Jeremiah Love, and his stats have
Oh,
not been overwhelming.
no, he's been exciting every time he's touched
It's
the
been
ball.
exciting every time. He's got 39 carries for 269 yards, only 1 touchdown, but you can see how close he is. And there aren't, I mean, unless you want to call Mitchell Evans a newcomer, there aren't a ton of newcomers here. Jaden Greathouse has been injured now long enough. You've kind of got to
Yeah.
knock him down. If he'd been healthy all the way through, maybe
He
we're
would have been that
discussing
big.
him.
Yeah, yeah, he
But
would have been that
Jeremiah
big.
Love looks the part of, and to my understanding, he's already catching notice well beyond Notre Dame. And so he's only a freshman. That's somebody for Notre Dame fans to really file away moving forward.
Most improved player.
I'm going to stay at the same position and improve. Maybe this would have been a newcomer as well, but Jadarian Price, sophomore running back,
Mhm.
the kickoff return for a touchdown
Yeah,
this weekend.
amazing.
We're not seeing the full Jadarian Price experience. We have to remember that go back to spring of 2022, so a year and a half ago, he was an early enrolled freshman and was considered the best running back on the team. That was with Audric Estime on the team. That was with Logan Dix on the team. And that was how good Jadarian Price looked. And then he blew his Achilles in the summer, and Achilles is a really tough injury to come back
Yeah,
from. I didn't expect him to have a successful September this year. I was pretty public about that. Like, it's an Achilles injury.
yeah.
And now I've learned, and I heard some words from Sean Crawford, who, if you remember, suffered in his own
Mhm.
Achilles injury way back when. like way back when. He played 9 years, so he covered most of the time. But his description of his recovery from Achilles injury was he was good, but he would get tired earlier in games and his Achilles would get sore. So Notre Dame, if you look when they used Jadarian Price, Ohio State has stood out to me. I don't have the play-by-play in front of me, but he barely played the first half. It's because they knew we've got only 6 or 10 or 14, whatever the pitch count is. We've got only that many at Jadarian Price. We're using them in the second half. So
Yeah, and second half blew out.
we're
Wow.
getting a minimal aspect of Jadarian Price, and he's this impressive. He's taking 20 carries for 100 yards. That's 5 yards a carry for a guy who's supposedly limited. He's got that kickoff return for a touchdown. He's had a few other nice returns. There's a lot to Jadarian Price that we should keep in mind. I would assume Audric Estime goes pro this year. He's a running back. Running back should. Maybe there's some different NIL calculus moving forward. But assuming he goes pro, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love is going to be a great duo next season.
I gotta say, I remember looking at some of the other high-profile Achilles injuries in different sports. Like I think about Kelsey, from the Aces.
Kelsey
She won, yeah, Kelsey Plum. You know how
talking
she,
about her earlier today.
yeah, but like how she got an Achilles injury and then like within a year won an Olympic gold medal. I mean, it was just like incredible. And obviously Kevin Durant as well coming back from his Achilles. So it seems as though the Achilles injury, for some reason, there's been like this. People are recovering and getting to a point
Good.
at a very high level very quickly, which is great. You know, like but before that was like one of those injuries where, I mean, you know, your career is basically over. You know,
It ended Kobe's effectiveness for all intents and purposes.
it's just such a hard one. So I'm happy to see that people are coming back. So then, for me, I gotta say, and this isn't really fair because you know you had Michael Mayer on the team, but for me, it's Evans, Mitchell Evans. I really like watching him play, and I think especially since Jaden Greathouse got, you know, since he was injured, I thought he really stepped up big time and has continued to grow over and over and over again. Which in my mind, I'm like, man, can he continue to fill his role? Like now they're going to game plan for him. Can he continue to keep catching these balls? So for me, I think that he's really improved. I'm excited to see how he continues to elevate his game. So he's my.
And we should remind people, because this doesn't get discussed enough. He was a quarterback in high school. Not like a traditional drop back, throw the ball quarterback, but he lined up behind center in high school. And you go back to that Duke game. Remember he had that one-handed catch where eventually you saw an angle where it was like that wasn't a fluke. He just corralled that ball with one hand. He was in control the whole time. This guy is still relatively new to pass catching. We knew he was big. We knew he could run block, but the pass catching has been a revelation.
It's been amazing. So, best win of the season.
What do I need?
Come on, dude.
That Tennessee State win. That really, I don't know. Wow, it's USC. They didn't just beat USC. They rolled USC 6th straight home victory against your biggest rival. That's starting to be something to note, because this is, you and I have discussed before, Notre Dame's rivalries. I always say people grow up on the East Coast, they hate Notre Dame fans that grow up on the East Coast hate Boston College and Michigan. Notre Dame fans that grow up anywhere else hate Michigan and USC. Everybody hates Michigan. Well, Michigan's not on the schedule every year anymore. So it's more a USC item. And it's to beat them 6 times in a row at home, that's starting to be a number. And not to look 2 years ahead already, but boy, if you're Marcus Freeman, you are circling that right now as I'm not losing to USC in South Bend ever.
I mean, I have to agree. Best ND moment of the season for you. What do you think?
It's the combination, the back-to-back plays of the Sam Hartman 4th and 16 scramble, followed up by Audric Estime's 30-yard touchdown run at Duke. That was a game that
was crazy.
I don't want to say it looked lost, but you had to go 9, and the official stat is 95-yard game-winning touchdown drive, but there was a false start penalty before the first snap. They covered 97 yards, and that's not as good as much praise as I heaped on Sam Hartman, and you joined me a little bit ago. Like, you weren't expecting to pull that off. 97 yards at that point? No.
Yeah, because there are times, like I said, this season in the 2-minute drill, you mentioned Jack Cohn. I thought he really excelled in 2-minute drill scenarios, but you're right. In the meat of the game, he made, it seemed like there was nothing going until you were back against the wall, 2-minute drills. The thing I like about Sam Hartman in this offense is, you feel like, hey, we only need 30 seconds to score. And he's done that. It's like we need 37 seconds to score. We need a minute to score. And that drive, I remember I texted you from a cabin in Alaska. I was sitting here watching this game, and I was like, the play came in 8 seconds where he handed it off to Audric Estime. 8 seconds, the play came in, and I was like, oh my gosh, my heart is great. You can't run a 2-minute offense that way. You got to give them time to run the play and assess the defensive coverage. And of course, estimate makes him right and gets a score. And that's one of those where I was like, this team, like in 2-minute scenarios, I know that we can get on the board, and that's so special. Like you cannot put a price on that. So I mean, that was a very special moment. Very
And we
hard,
should, Corey.
stressful.
I know you're going to remember that moment partly because, I've watched some college football games from absurd locations. Like every rest stop in Indiana and Ohio, I have pulled over for 2.5 hours to watch some game I need to study. Notching a game in Alaska this year is up there, so you're going to remember that for a long time.
Yeah.
We should add to your memory of that. The reason that play call came in so late, we've learned, was Notre Dame didn't have a signal for center the ball for a field goal kick. And so it took a little bit to get the play in because, like, what do we want to do? We don't have a signal for. And that's an item that Marcus Freeman has learned from. That's an item that Jared Parker has learned from. He's kind of he's like in a year 1.5 as an offensive coordinator because he did have half a season back at West Virginia. So these are items they're learning from, and that should be they got away with it. And so that's encouraging moving forward.
Yeah, there's a couple times this season where I was kind of worried about certain things like, okay, Ohio State, how do you bounce back? And this has been my best indie moment. That Duke game, because I'm saying, like, I can't even put it into words how difficult it is, as a 20-year-old to manage your emotions when you're talking about college game day, to do back-to-back college game days. And then to have that devastating loss, like the team told us, like in their own words, right, that loss was devastating. To then come back the very next week and then win it the way that they did, I'm telling you, on college game day, as a 20-year-old, I would need to I would need to spend a lot of time in prayer or meditating on my calm app, whatever. It's very impressive. So the tenacity of this team to be able to come back, for me, that was the moment where I thought this team is legit, because a lot of teams would have been broken by that. And then the same thing last week, Louisville, Coach Jason Garrett called that an aberration to come back the way they did in the defense and the special teams to win in all three phases against USC. I thought that was another huge statement of the mental capability of this team. So for me, that Duke game was really big. That was my favorite moment.